stages in meditation about these beliefs. So remember, he's exercising a kind of academic skepticism about his previous beliefs that he holds, in order to find the one that are certain, beyond any doubt. Once he has these beliefs that are certain beyond any doubt, he's hoping to build all the knowledge on the basis, all the other knowledge on the basis of these foundations. Okay. So the first one, he talks about faulty perception. We know that sometimes we have faulty perception. No? For instance, when I have very, very high fever, I start to see things that don't exist. Hallucination and things. That doesn't mean that my sense perception organs or sense perception are not good in general. But it could happen. And so people in abnormal physical and mental condition tend to have misperceptions. But such faulty sense perception seems to occur only in special circumstances. So for instance, you see the broken pencil? Is it really broken? So I mean, it's not the most favorable condition to look at the pencil. It could happen. But that's not a universal reason to doubt our senses. We still think that in normal conditions that are favorable to us, we can see things properly. So, doubting the reliability of such perception does not warrant the universal doubt concerning the reliability of our perception in normal, favorable circumstances. So, it introduces some doubts, but it's not enough to doubt everything. So Descartes, the next stage of Descartes, we will look at whether to consider whether we have good reasons to doubt our belief about the external world, what in normal circumstances where the senses are supposed to work well. Okay? So we just leave aside now all the abnormal situations, which are not very frequent, we think at least, and we will focus on the normal situation where we think that our senses work well. And we also, in order to have favorable circumstances, Descartes sits near the fire, in a nice, comfortable armchair, so he can think properly. And so on. Okay, so the first stage is there is some reason for concern, but it's not serious. Okay. Second stage, dreams. Dreams seems to cause a more serious challenge. Why? Because in dreams, our belief about the occurrences in the external world are frequently false. It's a kind of mishmash. We take a lot of things from the everyday and put them together in a strange way. Add some things, kind of original way. You can't think that on reflection, careful reflection, that there are no certain indications that can make the distinction between being awake and being asleep. Which is the reason to worry. Because if our beliefs or our experiences during sleep are very vivid, they can be as vivid as during the time that we are awake, and we cannot make the distinction between them, it might be that we are living in a dream world, or a kind of matrix. So the experience of sitting in front of the fire in sleep may be indistinguishable from the experience he has when he actually sitting, meditating in front of the fire. Okay? So that would be problematic, because if it turns out that we dream all the time, or we live in the dream world, then we cannot consider the belief that we have as justified as knowledge. Even if they are the true beliefs, they might not be knowledge because they are not justified. We have them for the wrong reasons. If we have true belief for the wrong reason, they are not justified. You know, if by chance the dreams happen to be the same as reality, that would not be good for the card. Okay. So the card argument is based on three premises, which is important to point out. They are not explicit, but we are making them now explicit. So one is that for one to know that one is sitting in front of the fire, one has to know that one is not dreaming that one is sitting in front of the fire. Why? Because then our justification will not be good. Knowledge, traditionally, is considered as a justified true belief. Just to have true belief that is not justified would not make it knowledge. Remember, he's internalist. He needs justification. It's not by chance that we have a mechanism that makes our dream, for instance, or by chance, I mean, our dreams happen to be just perfectly correlated with reality. That would not make it knowledge for the God. So to know that we perceive something, one must be able to distinguish between perceiving this thing and dreaming that one perceives. There is no distinction between the two, then it's not knowledge. Then there is reason to doubt. The second principle is that knowledge about the external world can only come based on the senses. You know exception to this rule? We've already talked about exception. No, but having knowledge, true knowledge about the world, not through the senses, the external world. We have reason, but we have an example. Yeah? What? Yeah, more inference, but knowledge, like knowing knowledge, direct knowledge of the world, not through sense perception. Remember Leibniz and Newton arguing that God is supposed to see everything without sense perception. No? It doesn't need, organs. So, but humans are not like that. So God can see things without sense organs and sense perception. That's the reason why Leibniz is very upset when Newton says that the space is the organ of God, space and time, because God doesn't need, organs in order to see everything that happens. Okay? But humans are not like that. This assumption is very plausible for humans, especially at the time of the scientific revolution. And also today, very few people think that we can know something about the external world, not something like informative, not through perception, one way or another. Anyway, that's the assumption that is made. Presupposition. And then, and also the assumption is that the experience during sleep can be indistinguishable from the experience in normal circumstances where we are not when we are awake. So like dreaming that I'm sitting near the fire could be as vivid and indistinguishable than actually sitting in front of the fire and accepting my situation, looking at the mirror. That is opposite. Okay? So that's an assumption that at least in some cases, it's impossible to make the distinction between the experience that we have during sleep of a certain perception and the real perception. If this is the case, then it seems that there is no way, if these three principles work. Well, anyway, this is the presupposition that he makes during the dream. And the conclusion of that is that we cannot make a distinction between, we don't know that our beliefs are not beliefs that were actually produced by dreams, or that they are dreams rather than reality. Yeah. Because if I had a different experience during perceiving and during dreaming that I perceived, then I would know. You know that the experience is different, then I would infer that I'm sleeping now or not sleeping. But if there is no distinction, then I don't know. So the problem is that I don't really know whether I'm kind of dreaming or whether I'm in the matrix. You heard about the matrix? Yeah. So whether I'm in the matrix or I'm really, like, so if I'm in a computer world, I mean, the kind of control, you know, I have some switches somewhere in my body, and all, you know, I'm just normal, as I think I am. Okay. But the cult has a kind of interesting twist. So it seems that, yeah? Yes. The mind, the cult is a dualist. The mind is not the body. So when I think, the thoughts are not in my brain, the thoughts are in my mind. We tend to think, common view nowadays is more monist, that the brain and the mind are not equal. Or at least the mind is an expression of the brain. But for the cult, they are totally different. My mind can go to your body to transfer from one. In principle, they're connected somehow, and that's a difficult question why. But the mind is not physical, and the body is a physical object. So the mind, look, my body is part of the external world. In principle, you don't need. Maybe as human we do need, but the mind in itself, the relationship between the mind and the body are kind of complicated, and that's part of the reason why dualism is not as highly regarded these days as it used to be. But in principle, logically speaking, the mind doesn't need the body. The mind can have all these dreams and all these experiences without body. I can be, okay. So, but Descartes has an interesting twist. It seems like, at that point, it seems that everything is gone. You know, if we cannot make a distinction between reality and dreams, it seems that we already lost. There is nothing that could be certain at that point. But Descartes actually doesn't give up. He thinks that he actually analyzed what dreams are, in a sense, and comes to the conclusion that even the skepticism about dreams doesn't make all the beliefs uncertain or doubtful. And here is the idea. Descartes thinks that what we have in the dream are composed by basic elements of reality that are just composed in a different way. So there is something true in the dreams. The basic elements of dreams are things that we do perceive in reality, but in the dream, we can have a different composition. So, so, what is this? How is this picture called? Huh? Circle, yeah. And it's a, do such picture exist? In art they do exist, no? Not in reality, but art does similar things like to dreams. Can take, elements that in reality, like part of human body and then part of an animal, and bring them together. Okay, so Descartes' view is that dreams are similar in that sense. And if it's true, if this view is correct, then even the dream challenge doesn't put under doubt all things about reality. What it puts under doubt is things that we perceive, but not the basic elements of this perception. So, when I see you, it might be that I'm in a dream, so you don't exist. But there is something that exists, which my brain composed into you. Yeah. Well, that's a view, that's a common view, if you think about Freud and other, that in a dream, basically, there are elements of reality that are just, composed in a different way. For whatever reasons, this, issue of philosophy and psychology. But the view is that, like in art, that whenever you have like a satire or other, pictures of things that don't exist, many times, there are a combination of things that do exist, and we did see. So Saran and Sartre is a kind of common example, but there are examples in art. So Descartes does make the analogy with art, that in art, we can have things that don't exist, but they are based on things that exist, just composed in a different way. So Descartes' conclusion is that it is important to make a distinction between the simplest and the most general universal object and composite objects. So there are the most simple and basic objects. The challenge of dream doesn't actually undermine our confidence that our belief about these things beyond doubt, or that they are doubtful. But the combination of our beliefs about these simple things, we can doubt. Because the dream and art show an example that one can actually combine them in their own way. Okay? And among the simplest elements are corporeal nature of things, their extension, the fact that things are not like a geometrical point. They have volume, that they have certain geometrical figures. These are the most basic things in reality for Descartes. Descartes thought that things are extension, that objects, the nature of object is to be extended. So the extension of things, it's very, as you can see, the corporeal nature, all these are very abstract. But these are the most fundamental things that Descartes thinks that our beliefs about them, the dreams, the challenge of dreams, doesn't actually challenge our belief about them. Because the dreams must have origin. And the origin is in this perception of these fundamental basic things. We just, we just, mix them together in a way that is not like in reality. Okay? Now, the interesting thing is Descartes thinks that this has implication for science, for natural philosophy. Because this distinction, using this distinction, it distinguishes between two kinds of sciences. Physics, astronomy, and medicine are sciences that have for their end a consideration of composite objects and accordingly are indeed of a doubtful character. So it means that in physics, astronomy, and medicine, we take beliefs about the basic things and we combine them into beliefs about composite. Now we know that our beliefs about composite are doubtful. So we should be more doubtful about these sciences. And any belief that they produce, all the beliefs that we have on the basis of these sciences are doubtful at that point. Because they are like the beliefs in dreams of composite objects. That is it. On the other hand, he says that arithmetic, geometry, and other sciences of the same class, which regard merely the simplest and the most general object, and scarcely inquire whether or not these are really existent, contain somewhat that is certain and immutable. So basically, geometry, the mathematical sciences, are still not under doubt at that stage because they study the basic element of reality. And we say that the dream challenge doesn't challenge the basic element of reality, it just challenges the combination that we make of the belief about these basic elements. Because we saw the picture of the Satyr. Satyr doesn't exist. So it combines humans and animals together. And it combines them to something that doesn't exist in reality. So the dreams, according to Descartes, could take real elements